Martha, 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 huh? Any Marthas here, huh? All the doers, right? Any Marys here? The contemplative ones who just kind of like to soak it in? Any Maddys here? Martha, Maddie, anyone? Maddie? Any Maddies here? This is all inclusive thing. This isn't just for women. Busyness and contemplation. This is for every human being here. Martha or Mary, Marty or Maddie, whoever we may be. Great dynamic in the gospel. Sisters going at it. The scriptures are filled with stories like that. Brothers going at it. Jacob and Esau. Cain and Abel. There was even contention among James and John as to who was the what? The greatest, right? Who were going to be the senior vice presidents in the organization. They even had their mother advocating for them, huh? God, we're always comparing and trying to get one up on the other. Cut out when we can, let the other person do the work. And you almost figure, had we not heard this for our entire lives, that the rest of the story would be like, you know what, Martha, you're right. Your sister, she doesn't do squat. You always do all the work. You do such a great job. I'm going to speak to her. Martha, Martha, you're anxious and worried about so many things. She's on the money. She's got the right stuff going. Relax. What would the kids say today? Chill, right? Just relax. But then we go to this place of like, well, if everybody's Mary, who's going to get the stuff done, right? And to all of you Marthas out there, self-included, we got to get stuff done. It doesn't just magically happen as we sit at the feet of the Lord and contemplate, oh, isn't this beautiful? I just want to drink in what you have to say, How do you find that balance in life between actively doing, but also stepping back in this ridiculously overscheduled, crazy, busy world of ours, where there's instantaneous access on those devices that don't let people disengage on the mind level for very long, even if you're on vacation? I'm telling you, this is what was going on as I'm listening to the beautiful readings that you guys were doing. I immediately noticed that lights were out in here, and it seems a little dark. And I'm like, I got to get to Lisa. She's got to call the electrician. They got to get the lift in here. This is all going on in the first and second reading. I apologize right now, huh? But Lisa's on vacation. And so is that expectation to send that text, get that electrician in so that when she gets back in on Wednesday, they get back in? Listen, do you see what's going on? Does anybody else ever do that stuff? Or are you the recipient of one of those texts or emails from the boss or the team? There seems to be no time to just step back. And yet, Jesus says today, it's the better part. I always feel guilty when I step back. That's when the quarter Irish overtakes the 3/4 Italian in me, huh? Why do we feel guilty when we step back? To renew, be restored. We put gas in our cars. We charge our phones. What about the spirit? What about the soul? What about the thing that lives on even after this body of ours is gone? We've all got a limited shelf life. I've been saying that lately because it's on my mind. We're only on this earth for a short time. And I've said it a million times, whether it's 2 years, 22 years, 77 years, or 100, let's say 120 years, huh? It's a short time in light of eternity. So what lives on? The thing that makes you and me, that spirit, that our very essence, our soul, huh? And if you and I aren't paying attention to the soul, and we're only paying attention to the body. We only go to the gym or try to eat healthy. And that's hard enough for so many of us on so many levels. If we're only taking care of what's got that limited shelf life, what's going to happen after that last breath? I'm not saying this to be afraid. I'm saying this like it's motivating me. When we meet the one who made us, will we know him? Will he know us? Will we have spent any time with him like Mary did, getting to know him, contemplating the stuff like, am I in the right relationship? Am I on the right path in life? Is this my right calling? Is this the right major for me? Is this the right job for me to take? If we're not praying and asking for that guidance and talking with him and then listening on that heart level, what happens? I'm putting this out to all of us after that last breath. I don't think it's going to be like, hey, who are you? No, who are you? I don't know if it's going to be like that. He knows who we are. But there's knowing, ready, who somebody is. And then there's what? Knowing another person. Does Jesus know you? Does Jesus know me? Do you and I ever spend time, quote unquote, like Mary, at the feet of the Master in our ridiculously busy lives? I am so talking to myself right now, but to all of us. If you're a doer, it almost feels like we shouldn't be wasting time. But the question then comes up, where does the doing come from? Does it come from a deeper place where we've thought about what we're doing? We've contemplated. To use religious language, we've prayed about it, huh? We've meditated. We become more mindful and self-aware. Does our doing come from that place, or is it mindless busyness and running that only gets us, to use the words of Jesus, more anxious, worried, stressed out, and overburdened? I know I'm not speaking to anybody in this church today. I can just tell by the faces. We're all in that, aren't we? To varying degrees. It's unbelievable how it happens. And I think that so often in my life, like in many of our lives, we can just get better and better at the doing at the expense of the being. You with me? Mary has chosen the better part. I want us to think about this in light of however life is for you at this stage of life. Might be challenging. You might even have an insight and a glimpse today, like, yeah, I needed to hear this. This is of the Spirit. But your boss might be like, nice try, pal. Now get back to work. We got these deadlines. We got to do this. I'm not interested. Again, how do we integrate? How do we work all this stuff up? This past week, when we were down in D.C., 7 days ago, exactly at this time, we had our 23, 25 kids, and some of the adults are here today. I don't see too many of the kids here. We were on air mattresses in classrooms all week. In D.C., it's hot up here, let me tell you. And as my mother used to say, oh, it's not just the heat, it's the what? The humidity. It is wild down there in D.C. So the heat index was like 106, like we're going to experience today, huh? But we go into this parish, St. Teresa of Avila. Everybody, deflates their air mattresses, gets a vans packed, and there was a parish from Lynn, St. Pius and Lynn. So we're all into this church. I'm telling you, this guy spoke for 25 minutes. I'm confessing, I literally looked at my watch. I want to see how long he talks and what it feels like. It was good. I loved it. This guy was engaging Father Ray East. He was so much so that I said, would you ever come up to Boston? He's like, Boston, absolutely. I said, come. It'll be unbelievable. This guy was filled with the Spirit. And that gospel choir, that African-American gospel choir, I know I was like Timmy the tourist, but I took the phone out, I was in the pew, and I'm videoing everything. I told Rob, I'm going to give it to you, man. It was just enlivening what was happening there. And it went on for, we won't do that today, but 2 hours. Beautiful. I saw those fans going. I saw these people rock. It was just of the Spirit. And it was a great way for our kids to begin their week of service. The trip is called Young Neighbors in Action, and it's a service learning trip. I always tell people, it's not just a mission trip, service learning. So you do the work, the Martha stuff, but then at night in the programming, Johnny Cruz, director, gets up there. That was a reference back, remember that? Love Boat, yeah. And does the facilitating to help them make sense of the doing and where it's coming from on the deepest levels, the gospel and Catholic social teaching. In other words, don't just go out there and be a do-gooder. Go out because you've been thinking about, you've been contemplating, you connected with Jesus in such a way that you're propelled to go out there and do the right thing. All the stuff that he modeled. And I'm going to tell you, as you know, with all the issues that we've had in the parent company as of late, there was great hope for the future in the leadership of these kids. What leadership? They led, man. I watched them. We watched them. Nick, Trevor, you guys as the adults, you model for them way to be as adults, the adults on our trip. These kids not only picked up rakes and hoes and were with little kids and with older folks and doing all this stuff, but then they made connections between the service and what we believe. Go online sometime and just look up Catholic social teaching, the 7 principles, and you'll see what propelled them this week. And I hope, oh, Janet too, didn't see you, huh? And I hope will propel them throughout life to be of service because they've contemplated, like Mary, what it means to be a Catholic Christian. We can't just show up to Mass on Sundays, put a few bucks in the basket, not eat meat on Fridays during Lent. We are compelled to go out there and alleviate the suffering of others, empower others, be a voice, not so much for the voiceless. They have a voice, it's just not heard. All of that stuff. I saw our kids in action in a beautiful way this week. Reflecting on what we do is vitally, vitally important. There was a nun that we met, late 70s, early 80s. Used to live in the tenements. Told me the story one year of how she spent Christmas morning cleaning the blood out of the elevator after the shooting. Everybody was illegal. Nobody had a voice. Everybody was in fear. They were working in the embassies where they didn't pay them. They were slaves. And I introduced her to some of the staff, and one of them said, "Sister, where are you from?" And she says, she's from Belgium originally, and she's got that accent. And when asked where she was from, she says, "I am from heaven." I was like, "What?" She says, "We only have a short time on this earth to do good." And then from there, she says, "Come into my cathedral." And she brings us into this little room where she's got a little tabernacle where she spends time like Mary in contemplation and then goes out. She said her day started that morning with food that she had when the prostitute knocked on her door and came in and she served her breakfast. Where the people who are in her building are not the acceptable of society. She used to have a coffee table, but then she put the coffee table upright. And I said, "That's a really long coffee table." She said, "Dear Father John, that's my coffin." What? It's a constant reminder. We don't have a lot of time. We have to do good. Who meets people like this? And this woman does good. Her goodness comes from all that she thinks about regarding the time that we've been given. Does mine? Does ours? Our busyness and our business in life is more productive as a result of our contemplation and thinking about what we're doing and not just mindlessly going on the hamster trail. Jesus doesn't say what Martha does is bad. He simply says, Mary's chosen the better part. We have to have the doers. We have to be doers, but we have to contemplate. Will Jesus know you and me? Measure how we're doing by the levels of anxiety and stress and worry and fear that are in our lives. If those are high, like the thermometer today, we need to take a look at that. And take a look at it with Jesus. Spend a little time on this dog day saying, what do you want me to do? Am I on the right track? Just spend a little time thinking about, get to know him so that he can get to know us. St. Gregory the Great, I've never quoted St. Gregory the Great. He wrote something from back in the 300s or the 600s, and it's so timely. He says, we are moving toward our heavenly homeland. I think of the beautiful Jerry Doyle, Sheila. This guy did such good as a healer, as a doctor, as a husband, a dad, a grandfather, a friend. And life changes like that, as we talked about last week. What good are you and I doing? What levels of stress do we have? Are we listening and talking like Mary did to the Lord? So this week, take control. Spend a little downtime in whatever way works best for you, just to get in touch with self. And when the mind quiets, maybe, just maybe, speak. But more importantly, when the speaking is done, listen. The soul is driven, says St. Gregory, from contemplation to active work, to charity, and to service of one another. All Jesus wanted from Mary and Martha was real presence. Just sit down, be present. That's all he wants from us. Let's not get too busy in our busyness.